Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and today on Patriot Radio, China's economy continues a downward spiral. And in the Middle East, is a military operation in the offing? The buildup continues off the coast of Venezuela. And here back on the national front, more headway is made regarding election fraud. Here at Patriot Radio, we want you to have all the information before everyone else so you and your family can be prepared for the times that are ahead and the times that are already upon us. So follow us on patriotradio.us/Telegram. It's a great Telegram channel. We do the scrolling for you, aggregate across hundreds of different platforms, and it has real-time intelligence analysis and breaking news. So follow us. Also, we want to pray with you. patriotradio.us/prayer. Type that in. Send us a prayer request, especially now that we're getting into the end of the year. We're going to talk with our guest today, Matt Geiger, about what does the economy look like here in the next 90 days? And will Trump end the Fed in 2026? That brings us to your wisdom from the Word today. A lot of talk about the ending of, or the partial ending of EBT and SNAP benefits. Here's what the Word says. By the way, it is the church's job to speak into and fill that gap regarding feeding people. That's where it came from originally. And the church needs to pick that ball up again. It shouldn't be the government doing it. That said, regarding love, it says this. And again, this is the definition of love. It does not rejoice. Love does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth. So love is never going to cover for fraud. Love is never going to cover for lawbreakers. People say, well, you have to, according to the scriptures, treat foreigners in your country well, and that is correct. But they miss the point that those are foreigners in the country legally, with the recognition of that country. There were certain foreigners that were not allowed into Israel in the Old Testament. So let's not take things out of context and be clear. You're called to submit to the righteous and godly laws of a land. And maintaining a country's borders is always righteous, because Jesus Christ created nations in Genesis 10, and he judges them in Matthew 25 and expects some fruit out of a nation. And it also starts with you and I, but it starts with a presupposition that borders and nations matter to God. And that brings us now to your daily intelligence briefing, coming to us from the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
Universal basic income back on the discussion block, making slavery great again, apparently. The point behind UBI, or universal basic income, is a way to, keep people dependent on the state. The tipping point will be the realization that machines, AI, can more reliably make profit than people can, and robots as well. So therefore, people can't work. They will be on UBI, playing video games all day in an alternate reality that cannot be healthy for humanity and definitely is not biblical. Also, Dubai, the ugly life under technocracy. Dubai is a perfect model of technocracy on the planet. The golden age appearance of Dubai is a very expensive facade that hides tyranny, brutality, scientific dictatorship, and total surveillance and social credit monitoring. Dubai leads the world in surveillance camera density by land area with about 800 cameras per square kilometer. That's insane, which is among the highest recorded globally and speaks to the city's extensive smart surveillance infrastructure. Since 2016, Dubai has deployed advanced systems with AI-powered analytics for facial recognition, license plate reads, and crowd monitoring, increasing both the sophistication and per capita coverage of surveillance year on year. I don't think we want that in America, at least if we value freedom. Also on the globalist front, the persecution of Christians has finally been recognized. Trump called out the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. It's also happening in Sudan right now as well. And he said that perhaps we need to do a military operation in Nigeria to stop the killing of Christians. Well, of course, the Nigerian president denies the existence of a Christian genocide and denounces Trump's threat of military intervention. That's despite the overwhelming video, documentary, and pictorial evidence that there is a genocide going on in Nigeria. And Chad closed its borders with Nigeria amid fears Islamist militants can flee the country after Trump's statement, which they've tried to do before and operate in that Sahel area really with impunity. Robert Spencer, who we've had on this show many times, gives us the answer. Why does the Nigerian government want Christians to actually be killed? That's because the Nigerian government is made up of Fulani Muslims. They are one of the major groups waging the jihad. It looks like that is going to come to a head very soon. In addition to that, the U.S. ambassador, Mike Waltz, said 78 countries, 330 million Christians being persecuted around the world. It is the most persecuted religion, as a matter of fact. And I heard some Marxists and some other ignorant individuals chiming up online. But as a matter of fact, you can't dispute this. These are the facts, the numbers. 330 million Christians being persecuted around the world. It is the most persecuted religion, and relative silence from the international community on that. Why? Because the OIC, or the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and the Socialist International are the majority of countries in the United Nations. And, of course, communists who promote genocide against Christians and jihadis who promote genocide against Christians are not going to call themselves out on it. That brings us now to what I believe is a huge shift in the China front. The United States will deliver stronger economic growth than all its major advanced peers in 2025, with inflation, real wage growth, and unemployment figures that also outperform countries like Japan, the UK, Canada, France, and Germany. Now, what this really is underscoring is that the United States economic engine is turned on, and it is outpacing China. The U.S. could end dependency on Chinese rare earth minerals within 18 months, according to President Trump. The president said that China's ability to threaten America and its allies by dominating the critical mineral sectors will soon fade. This is peace through strength. Also, Trump says he won't let NVIDIA sell advanced chips to China and other countries. The United States is currently winning the AI race, Trump said, but giving China advanced chips will provide it with an equal advantage of the competition. So that very likely is going to, again, tip in our favor. And since Trump has done a fantastic job isolating China, you are going to see the Chinese economy continue downward. Pete Hegseth urged the U.S. ASEAN collaboration to continue to counter China in the South China Sea. We need to develop our joint capabilities to respond. He made those remarks on November 1st, calling on Southeast Asian countries to work closely with the United States to face Beijing's aggressions. He made the remarks while meeting with his counterparts from ASEAN on his second day in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He said the Chinese provocative actions, including using its vessels to ram other ships, and firing water cannons threaten the sovereignty of its neighbors and undermine regional stability. He said he welcomed hearing perspectives on the threats of all nations that face Chinese aggression and the course of actions for the South China Sea and elsewhere. It's interesting that on the heels of that, the U.S. publicly announced it seeks closer military ties with a traditional and age-old Chinese enemy, Vietnam. Vietnam's defense minister said that Hanoi and Washington agreed to continue pushing for security cooperation. Furthermore, the Chinese are facing internal strife. Chinese villagers clashed with state-owned rubber firm in Hainan over tree clearing. A villager accused Hainan Rubber of destroying crops, which led to unrest, a police standoff, and deleted media reports. So continued evidence that the government in China is unstable. Furthermore, Pete Hegseth visited the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, with his ROC counterpart from South Korea to meet the brave troops of the U.S. and the UN command that maintained military armistice on the peninsula. Our forces remain ready to support President Trump's efforts to bring lasting peace through strength. Pentagon also announced that this was the first time in 8 years that a U.S. Defense Secretary has made such a visit and is very clearly setting the stage for a later meeting between Trump and the North Korean leader. Chinese factories have boycotted nearly half of all Russian oil shipments following U.S. sanctions against Rosneft and Lukoil. According to Bloomberg, state-run giants Sinopec and PetroChina have already canceled several purchase orders of Russian crude and continue to hold off on new deals. The Far Eastern ESPO crude blend has been hit particularly hard, with prices now offered at 0.5, looks like it might be 50 cents per barrel, compared to $1 premium just a month ago. So this is going to have a dramatic effect on the Russian war machine. That's probably why Trump is waiting. But it's also not surprising then that the USS Nimitz, a cruiser and 4 destroyers, have entered the South China Sea near the disputed Scarborough Shoal. So the Scarborough Shoal is where all of these rammings that we've been reporting on have been taking place. There's been a couple others out, but that's been the main flashpoint. And it's possibly the largest U.S. deployment there in 25 years. So this is a clear flex by the United States to put China in its place. I want a caveat, historically analyzing this. Before World War II, I think it was about 6 or 8 months before World War II, Japan signed a trade agreement with the United States. So could China be holding off until the spring window, March, April, early part of May, which is the best time for tides to invade Taiwan? Trump came out the other day and said very clearly that he communicated to Xi that Xi knows what the United States will do if China invades. And perhaps China has now backed off on that. That's why we're seeing all the unrest. That's why we're seeing the instability in their government. And that's why the United States has shifted to the Western Hemisphere, which we'll get to here in just a second. That brings us now to the Middle East front. The UAE presidential advisor, Anwar Gargash, admitted the UAE erred in backing Sudan's coup, saying we all made a mistake when the 2 generals overthrew the civilian government. We should have put our foot down. Oops, sorry for the jihad. Which brings us to Command 11, a U.S. terrorism beyond the lookout, or BOLO. The U.S. Homeland Plot Commander, Mohammed al-Hashani, has a BOLO out right now. There's an entire article. I advise every church security team to read this, understand it. And yes, the threat to the United States for a terror attack on our soil is very real, which brings us to the next. And that is Muhammad Ali and Majid Mahmoud have been identified as the Muslim extremist suspects. No such thing as Muslim extremism. These are Islamic terrorists that have been accused by federal authorities of planning a Halloween terror plot in Michigan. So yes, they get their day in court, but we're going to say that this was going to be attempted Islamic terrorism. These 2 guys have been accused of it, and they will face their day in court. But the fact of the matter is, this underscores that there is a real threat to the United States of America of an October 7th style attack. And we are going to continue to warn of this. I pray that the right people are listening. Young Iranians chanting death to Khomeini during the funeral of Omid Sarlak. He was the young monarchist supporter who was murdered by the regime after he posted a video online of himself burning a banner of the Ayatollah last week. And Khomeini comes out and says he will not cooperate with the United States while it backs Israel. So what's going to happen in the Middle East? Well, Israel has announced the killing of a member of Hamas's Shujaya battalion who participated in the October 7th massacre and abduction of Israeli female soldiers. So they're continuing to clean up that mess. Channel 12 reports that Israel is preparing to allow 200 terrorists trapped in a Rafah tunnel on the Israeli-controlled side of Gaza to return to the other side of Gaza if they surrender their weapons. But apparently Netanyahu put his foot down on that and said no. So there are 200 trapped in a tunnel there. Interesting. They don't want to disarm. U.S. National Intelligence Chief Tulsi Gabbard also visited Israel, holding meetings with intelligence officials. During her visit, she met with senior members of Israeli intelligence to discuss regional security and intelligence cooperation. That by itself would not be an indicator. But the fact that Prime Minister Netanyahu will discuss tomorrow with senior officials the latest developments in Hezbollah, Iran, and Gaza is an indicator. In addition to Iraq's defense minister telling Iraqi state TV that he, alongside the chief of staff of the army, the deputy commander of joint operations, and the assistant for operations, and the director of military intelligence, held a call with U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. Interesting, because Hegseth informed them of imminent military operations, quote unquote, in the region, possibly involving hostile action by the United States and Israel against, you guessed it, Iran, warning military leaders of the consequences of Iranian-backed factions in Iraq getting involved in any potential conflict in the region involving Iran. So it does look like something is in the offing in the Middle East and potentially another attack on Iran. Israel has advanced a bill proposing a death penalty for deadly terror attacks, and that's something I think the United States should take up as well. Israel delivers desalinated water to the Sea of Galilee for the first time under Energy Minister Eli Cohen. In a historic move, the Israeli government, led by Energy Minister Eli Cohen, has transferred desalinated drinking water to the Sea of Galilee, Israel's largest freshwater reservoir, marking the first time such a project has been carrying out and securing Israel's water supply into the future. When we come back from the break, on the national front, President Trump threading a very tight needle, and it does look like there will be a surge for more deportations coming into the new year.
What if I told you you could convert your 401k or your IRA into gold? While your retirement is being beat up by a volatile stock market and inflation, it could instead be resting safely in physical gold at a place of your own choosing, including your own business. Look, gold has increased 50% in just the last year. Stock market, it's been nothing but a roller coaster. So protect your retirement from market chaos by calling Verity Metals today.
And we're back with the Russia front. President Trump says that Vladimir Putin has lost maybe 1 million soldiers in the Ukraine war, which verifies previous estimates we've talked about on this show that some folks have tried to deny, but the fact is it is the bloodiest modern conflict. And doesn't look like it's going to be ending, unfortunately, anytime soon. Following on the heels of that, and some threats by Vladimir Putin about a doomsday torpedo, their next step. Moscow unveils a new doomsday weapon designed to wipe out our country, the Khabarovsk submarine. Now, I want to explain why they called it that here in a second. Launched Saturday, said to be able to carry 6 Poseidon autonomous nuclear-powered, nuclear-armed drone torpedoes designed to cause a nuclear tsunami to destroy coastal cities. So not only did they come out and threaten the Poseidon torpedo, and this was the way that the Russians thought they could destroy the United States, was to take out its coastlines, because we have vast seas between us and any real adversary. Now they have a submarine that can launch 6 of them. This is a clear message. But what the interesting part about this is, at least to me, is they call it the Khabarovsk submarine. So the weakest link in Russia is its eastern flank. In fact, Khabarovsk is the end of the rail line in eastern Russia. Many military strategists believe, me among them, that you could park a couple of amphibious readiness groups and carrier groups off the coast of Russia, off of Khabarovsk, and the Russians would not be able to shift enough forces to meet that, and therefore would have to come to the negotiating table. So I find it very interesting they call it that, as if to say what you thought was our weak point is actually a strong point because the submarine is going to be in the Pacific. A very direct threat to the United States of America. Poland, meanwhile, is investigating 71 cases of espionage for Russia and Belarus since the start of the full-scale Russian invasion. In addition to spying, the suspects are accused of involvement in sabotage, subversion, and disinformation. At least 55 people have been detained, with 73 listed as suspects. Latvian security forces have arrested a man suspected of spying for Russia. A Latvian citizen is accused of collecting and passing information to Russia's GRU, that's the military intelligence arm of the Russian military, about Latvia's defense sector, NATO forces stationed in the country, private infrastructure that could be used for aviation purposes, and the conditions for purchasing prepaid mobile SIM cards. So clearly there are infiltrators in Eastern Europe. On a good news front, starting next school year, some schools in Armenia will introduce Azerbaijani language classes following the withdrawal of Russian peacekeepers. And with U.S. mediation, the two ancient nations have finally ended their long-standing hostility and are now building a shared future in peace. That brings us to the South America front. The United States is restoring an abandoned military base in Puerto Rico, potentially for operations in Venezuela. The crews have been clearing and resurfacing taxiways leading to the runway at Roosevelt Roads Naval Base, which has been closed for 20 years. The U.S. military officials and naval experts told Reuters the moves are likely intended to pressure Venezuela's leadership and President Nicolas Maduro. I don't think this is a matter of pressure. I think this is a matter of a decision has already been made. That's what the indicators would seem to say here. Now, I also find it fascinating that the photos captured last month by Reuters show a mobile aircraft arresting system. This isn't just a refurbishment to put pressure on. These mobile aircraft arresting systems are used for emergencies, and a tactical air navigation system and a weather station can also be seen installed near the runway at Roosevelt Roads. That means they are preparing for operations. No question about it. So it is likely that in the next 2 weeks to a month, there will be U.S. strikes in Venezuela, as well as it looks like Mexico. Protesters have stormed Mexico's government palace after mayor's cartel assassination. Hundreds of furious Gen Z protesters broke into the government palace, and it looks like this might be a start of a Gen Z revolution down there in Mexico. With over 30,000 cartel-related murders each year, anger is boiling over. I would say so. That's because communists have emboldened and enabled the cartels in Mexico. The U.S. is considering military action in Mexico to strike drug cartels. They won't know what hit them. That is correct. Now, the United States has done expeditionary missions into Mexico from time to time, about every 80 years or so, in the 1840s, then in the early 1900s, and now it is looking like we may have to again. The Trump administration is preparing a new mission in Mexico to target drug cartels. According to NBC News, citing U.S. officials, the plan involves deploying American troops and intelligence officers to strike drug labs and cartel leaders inside Mexico. The early stage training for the potential mission has already begun. Though deployment isn't imminent, discussions about its scope are still underway. I suspect that's actually a ruse right there. The operation would involve elite forces from the Joint Special Operations Command under U.S. intelligence authority known as Title 50 status, with participation from the CIA. I suspect there are already assets on the ground in Mexico. We would be ridiculously stupid not to have assets on the ground. And I suspect the targets have already been chosen. And this will happen sooner rather than later, probably by the end of the year. That brings us to the National Front. Everybody's talking about food stamps. Trump administration will partially fund November food stamps. Everybody's talking about it. Like literally every prepper novel starts with this. I think we just need to rip the Band-Aid off of this thing. Churches need to take back over feeding people that need food. There's so much fraud here. And you see people that are coming into the country that can't even fend for themselves after 3 months. It's ridiculous. The administration has chosen to fund a reduced number of benefits or reduced amount of benefits for November. So this reduced amount is somehow in compliance with a court order that is actually illegal because the authority ran out for the program, which means no judge has jurisdiction over it. Regardless, apparently the law for some of these folks doesn't matter. But my point is that they will fund some benefits. How much that is, nobody knows. But it is clear there's fraud going on. Massive fraud was uncovered in food stamp programs since Agricultural Secretary as benefits lapse. 700,000 cases. So that needed to happen. And then Senator Ted Cruz shed light on what's really going on. I just learned that Democrats are plotting to reopen the government after this Tuesday's election because they wanted a higher voter turnout. That's why they shut the government down. Americans need to remember that come 2026. President Trump has picked up a big win at the U.S. Supreme Court. The court annulled a lower court injunction that was obstructing the president from revoking the protected legal status of hundreds of thousands of migrants presently living in the United States. The ruling was 8-1 in support of the president's position, with the sole dissent coming from Justice Jackson. The ruling facilitates the Trump administration's effort to revoke the Biden-era temporary protected status, or TPS, for approximately 300,000 Venezuelan migrants residing in the U.S. Very interesting timing on that as well. President Trump says that rich donors are funding organized violence against ICE in cities, naming Soros and Reid Hoffman as figures under scrutiny, and vows to pursue a RICO investigation. If they're funding, they're going to have problems. Federal judge again blocked President Trump from deploying National Guard to Portland. I suspect these are going to be overturned, but they're just throwing wrenches into the machinery. Meanwhile, Tom Homan reveals that President Trump is bringing on 10,000 new agents to round up and deport illegal aliens. We got to look for that 10.5 million illegal aliens that came across the border. We've also got to look at the additional 15 million that are already here. I want to just put this into perspective. The Trump administration needs to deport about 10 million to remove the ability for the illegal immigration vote, the illegal immigrant vote, from swaying elections. So 10 million people is what they need to remove. That illegal immigrant vote has been part of the Democrat plan for a very long time. That, combined with cracking down on election fraud, will rebalance scales back to where they should be. One person, one vote. And that one person is supposed to be a citizen. In a clarifying statement, the Energy Secretary said the U.S. weapon testing won't involve any explosions. A lot of people don't understand that. We can do U.S. weapons, nuclear weapons testing through models, etc. But back to elections. It's crazy not to require proof of citizenship to vote in any country's election. Proof of citizenship should be core. Elon Musk pointed this out. 83% of Americans support that, according to a poll. Also, Gateway Pundit first reported a new subpoena issued by the Georgia State Election Board to Fulton County for the physical paper ballots, ballot envelopes, and ballot stubs that are under a preservation order while litigation is pending. The reason they want the subpoena is because they don't have access to the machines to prove the machines were altered, but they can prove tampering if they can get the physical paper ballots, envelopes, and stubs. Because if the totals of the original ballots don't match what the electronic machines reported, then you know that the machines were altered. So this is a critical thing in the election fraud arena. Not just irregularities. What they're investigating would be fraud. More than 41,000 Wisconsin voter registrations don't match driver ID database state data shows. So this again gets to it. Who is registered? Are they citizens? Are they actual people? And then how are the elections, the ballots actually being counted, and is that audited in a meaningful way? This is going to become a huge issue over the next year. Now, Texas says that the Texas governor says he would slap 100% tariff on anyone relocating from New York City to Texas if Mom Donnie wins. Thought that was pretty funny. In addition to that, Mom Donnie features a trans rabbi who marched for Palestine in a campaign to push the Jewish community for their vote. I hope they see through that. And in another good news segment, Nancy Pelosi is expected to retire after Tuesday's California election, stepping down after nearly 4 decades in Congress. This is also a marker that the Democrat Socialists of America are really taking over the party. I think she's had enough. And lastly, a very interesting article from the Pacific Northwest that we're going to follow up on. Coming from the Idaho Tribune. Does anybody else think it's weird that the Shoshone County Sheriff, as well as the Coeur d'Alene Police Chief, Post Falls Police Chief, and Rathdrum Police Chief all resigned at the same time? Yes, that is weird. And there should be more coming out about that soon. That is the briefing. Thank you for staying with us that was an intense briefing, but be prepared. Things are about to get spicy over the next 2 months. And when we come back from the break, our guest, Matt Geiger.
What if I told you you could convert your 401k or your IRA into gold? While your retirement is being beat up by a volatile stock market and inflation, it could instead be resting safely in physical gold at a place of your own choosing, including your own business. Look, gold has increased 50% in just the last year. Stock market, it's been nothing but a roller coaster. So protect your retirement from market chaos by calling Verity Metals today.
And we're back with our guest today, Matt Geiger. He is the founder of Verity Metals, converttogold.com. Matt, it's great to have you back on the show. How are you doing?
Doing well, Pastor Matt. Good to see you. Good to be back.
So, the shutdown, let's talk about EBT first. It's partially funded now because a judge is ordering the president to do something a judge can't do. But all right, the authorization of the program ended. That means you can't fund it. There is literally no legal authorization to fund it. So the judge has no jurisdiction over that. I'm surprised that hasn't been brought up in court. But that said, how are you seeing this play out? Yeah.
I mean, I think, the Democrats are digging themselves a hole. I mean, when I look at EBT and all these, welfare programs, I mean, look, it's one thing if you're a 73-year-old lady or 73-year-old man, you paid into Social Security your whole life. You depend upon maybe some of these benefits because maybe you didn't, retire properly, you didn't save up enough money. I get that. And I do feel for those people. But, you see some of these videos going around the internet. It's young, able-bodied individuals that choose not to work. They really choose not to work, and they abuse the system. And the way I kind of look at it is, it's almost like the Democrats figured out years ago that it's almost like buying votes. They're buying votes from these people. And that should be illegal, and to bring in illegals, right, real illegals. And what is it? I think 45% of EBT goes to illegals completely. It's totally absurd. How I see it playing out, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but you're right. I mean, the Congress has the power of the purse. A judge is not supposed to be able to step in and rule on these types of things. Clearly, the Democrats don't want to give an inch on this stuff because they want to make it about politics rather than good policy. The whole thing's ridiculous, but we'll see what happens. I don't really have much of a prediction.
So the USDA today, actually, I think it was today or over the weekend, purged 700,000 fraudulent accounts getting EBT. We haven't even talked about illegals yet. These are fraudulent accounts. And I think that's what everybody's upset about is How abused is this system? I mean, the average weight of an American female not on SNAP is 145 pounds. The average weight of one on SNAP is 211 pounds. Is this actually healthy for the United States?
No, it's like anything else in government. It gets corrupted. It gets abused. Obviously, Democrats and probably a lot of Republicans too. They don't care. They're just it's a way for them. It's like that video from the 1940s or the 1950s where the guy says, hey, their plan is to put us into endless amounts of debt. Right? He predicts everything. I think it's like 1949. You know the video. He predicts everything that's playing out today. It's just another way for them to destroy the country through welfare benefits. And of course, the political angle is to make it virtuous. Right? We're helping poor people. We're helping put this, that, and the other thing. It doesn't go to just poor people. It goes to illegals. It gets abused. It's like the voting system. It's like everything else. It's just, I'm tired of it. I think everybody's sick of it.
Right. And we're bringing in immigrant families. I mean, I looked at the top 5. So, of percentage of families in the United States, Afghan families, it's like 45% are on SNAP. Then it was Iraq. Then it was Somalia. Then it was Haiti and the Caribbean. I mean, these folks are coming into the United States of America and they aren't able to get off of SNAP. I mean, I've met legal immigrants into this country, max, like 3 months, max, where they would need any kind of help, let alone any benefits like that, but any kind of help. 3 months, they're getting on their feet, got a place to live, they're going out and being productive members of society. How do we shift that mentality?
Well, I think you got to get rid of them. I think you got to get rid of the illegals. It's what you got to do. And as a friend of mine says, we don't want to just send them back to their countries and just, screw off. We want to go back and we want to help these countries. So I think this is part of the reason why we're in Venezuela right now. We're in Mexico. I see a war breaking out between the United States and Venezuela, where I think we're just going to go capture Maduro and just say to hell with this guy. We're going to go in there. It's probably going to be another situation like Iraq, where we're going to have to take occupation of the country, impose a Democrat I should say, not a democratic, but a free and fair election, and have these people brought into the first world over time. But it's not about being our brother's keeper, as my friend would say. It's about being our brother's brother. We want to go send them back there and help them clean up their own countries and make Venezuela great again, make Mexico great again. There's no reason why we can't do it, but I think it's going to take some Delta force to go in there and kick some ass. That's what it's going to take, and I think they're over there getting ready to do that. And I think that's what you're going to see happen here in the next couple months.
I was talking to a friend. He was saying, we just need to rip the Band-Aid off of the SNAP program. And I think there's a place for the church to step back into its actual role. Originally, churches were tasked with feeding the community. If there was any kind of shortage or crisis, churches would store up food and have their own food bank to help people in crisis. And I think the church needs to step up at this time. If we really mean what we say, that we should love our neighbor, then government shouldn't be doing it for us.
100%. It's so funny you say that, because not even 45 minutes ago, I was just on the phone with my good friend Scott. And if Scott, you're listening, I'm repeating what we discussed. The churches used to help people. They used to have food banks at churches where people, hey, you're down on your luck. You lost your job. You got kids. You got a family to feed. Go down to the church. They got stockpiles down there. It goes to show you that this can be solved in such a more humane way and without government. We don't need government to come in and create these programs that, what are we just talking about? Waste, fraud, and abuse. Just the whole thing is just a total scam and money laundering operation. The churches could really step up. But I think that also means that society needs to turn back to God, and people need to go back to the churches, spend their time there, whatever it is, go there Sunday, do your worship on Sunday, whatever the case may be. And, people, if they have money, in my church, I donate $100 every Sunday. I put $100 in the little hat or whatever it is they pass around. End of story. And that, if everybody did that, whether it be $100 or even $1, we could feed people that are down on their luck. Because, like you pointed out, this is not supposed to be some long-term stay on welfare. No, this is supposed to be, hey, we'll get you through this rough period of time. We're here for you. Get back on your feet, and then hopefully you get into a position where you can help people in the same situation.
Yeah, in the scripture, just to go off a little bit on this, in the scripture, it's very clear that in Acts, they evaluated, first of all, if you were an able-bodied man, you didn't get church charity. If you were an able-bodied younger woman, you didn't get church charity. if you were a widow, you had to meet certain criteria that you were actually going down to the church to serve, that you had lived a virtuous life and were actually obeying God's commands. Then church charity would go out. So there was actually a screening process. And I hear people today say, oh, it's just unchristian to require anything of other human beings. That's absolutely not the case at all. God always requires something of us, and he meets us as we step out.
Oh, 100%. And, you know, it's actually gone in reverse, where now you see these videos of people threatening to say, oh, I'm just going to walk out of the store with my groceries.
Right.
This, that, and the other. Now they're going to go start committing crimes because they're not being given the government handout. Like, it goes to show you where our society's at and how far we've really lost our way.
Well, there's actually YouTube channels now apparently training people how to shoplift better, how to rob people that are putting groceries in their car, because that's the most vulnerable time for people is when they're putting groceries in their car. It's just crazy town, right?
Incitement to violence, that should be a crime.
It should be, absolutely. So we see this with Venezuela coming on the horizon right now. There's a lot of talk about whether we should or shouldn't do that. I think it's bigger than narco terror, and I think you feel this too, that Venezuela's been used as a hub by Russia, China, Iran to attack the United States of America, including the election system of the U.S.
Election machines. Yeah, the Smartmatic comes out of Venezuela. They're the ones that the deep state's been operating using Venezuela as kind of the front man to say, oh, everything looks great over here. You know, Venezuela's got more oil than the Middle East. They should be, I mean, the fact that their money's worth nothing and their people are in poverty, it goes to show you just how bad things have gotten. Yeah, Venezuela is a perfect example of what these communists in our country, this is what they want. This is what they want for us.
Yeah, they want to turn this into Venezuela, 100%. You know, when you have proxies with Colombia and Cuban intelligence is helping to run Venezuela. A lot of people don't even know that. But the fact of the matter is, an attack on our election system is an act of war. And we are acting like war is only some kind of kinetic thing when it involves information now. The Chinese use almost every area of our lives as a battlefield.
Oh, 100%. And to take it a step further, I think some of the votes were counted in 2020 and 2024. I think they were counted in, I want to say it's Yugoslavia. I could be wrong in the country.
It was Serbia.
Serbia. John Brennan owns that building where they did the vote count.
Very
John
interesting.
Brennan he has ownership of that building. I think he's a half owner of that building, John Brennan. And who's on the hot seat right now?
Exactly. And General Flynn is correct. John Brennan needs to be one of the very first brought up on charges. So let's shift a little bit to the economic situation right now. So if this, and I don't think it's going to continue much longer. I think the Democrats are using this as an election ploy to mobilize their base. But if this continues into next week or the week following, I mean, will this have an impact on the economy, the government shutdown?
I mean, I certainly see it could. I mean, certainly, the government running and things like that. I mean, that's, it does hold a large basis for that. In my opinion, I mean, I think the economy, maybe the good guys are almost using it for their plausible deniability as to why the economy went down, right? And then it just becomes the blame game. So this is why, obviously to give myself a plug here, this is why you have to, the banks could turn around and use this as an excuse saying, hey, this is why the banks are crashing is because, hey, they shut down the government so long, et cetera, et cetera. They'll find some reason or excuse. This is what these people do for a living, is figure out some plausible deniability to get out of it. But yeah, I mean, I would get your money out of these banks. I'd be getting it out of these markets. Certainly, as I said before, I think we're going to see an invasion of Venezuela to take out Maduro. I think you're going to see an invasion of Mexico to take out the cartels. This is the type of stuff that creates tremendous amounts of uncertainty, tremendous amounts of instability. And it's also plausible deniability for the bankers and the people who know that they're already failing to say, hey, this is the reason why, this is why your checking account disappeared today, Mr. Jones. This is why your IRA or 401k no longer exists. It's Trump's fault. Putin did it.
When we come back from the break, more with Matt Geiger, we're going to be talking about the gold and silver markets, what happened really there, and what we can expect in the next 90 days.
What if I told you could convert your 401k or your IRA into gold? While your retirement is being beat up by a volatile stock market and inflation, it could instead be resting safely in physical gold at a place of your own choosing, including your own business. Look, gold has increased 50% in just the last year. Stock market, it's been nothing but a roller coaster.
So protect your retirement from market chaos by calling Verity Metals today.
We're back with our guest, Matt Geiger, Verity Metals, converttogold.com. So the gold and silver markets took a little bit of a hit. Kind of tell everybody what happened and what your analysis is of that.
Well, naturally, when prices start to go up, you see a little bit of a correction. That's all you saw, right? Silver went up to maybe about close to 55, I want to say. Right around 55. Gold went up to around 40, what was it, 46, 47. Took a turn back down to 4,000. This is just the paper markets. What really happens when you look at spot prices, we've talked about on the show before, that's just the paper price of gold and silver, right? The physical, which is what we're in, you pay a premium to get that, right? So when you buy a physical piece of metal, let's say the price of gold is 4,000, or let's say a gold bar or a gold coin, you might pay 41.50, right? So you pay maybe about $150 over that spot price to get 1 ounce of gold. So what they've done is they've thrown these paper contracts to suppress the price. Why? Because these banks have massive exposure to these short positions. And what that means is they're betting that the price is going down as opposed to going up. And they're basically protecting these short positions that have manipulated gold and silver for years to be suppressed. Gold and silver should be multiple times the price they are right now. You're just starting to see this manipulation break. So in reality, this is just a temporary thing. I would say if anybody out there, this is a great buying opportunity to instead of getting gold at 4,500 to get it 4,000, and hopefully prices will shoot back up here pretty soon. I think they will, and you got yourself a great deal. You're ready in the green.
So China buying a lot of gold and some of these things that have been happening obviously have had an impact on the markets, but over the next 90 days, if we're talking war, if we're talking maybe the government shutdown continues, we're headed into the holiday season, the threat of terror attacks in the United States, how do you see the markets over the next 90 days?
I think it's going to be great for the metals. I think gold and silver I think you could see $75 silver by the end of the year, probably $5,000 gold by the end of it. Just my prediction. What do I know? But that's my gut instinct. And then I think it's going to go much higher from there. I think you're going to go probably to 60 to 75. Then probably very quickly to 100, and then from there, sky's the limit.
Wow. So how can people best prepare for kind of a little bit of the uncertainty that's going in? With gold and silver, I think a lot of people miss the fact that you can actually use your retirement account to begin to invest, to pull out of the old system. If you could describe that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, really what you're doing is you're just moving your current 401k or IRA. You're just moving your investment strategy to gold and silver. We open up a different type of IRA. It's called a self-directed IRA. Nothing changes. You're just moving the money laterally through the IRA system. That's tax-free, penalty-free, so there's no cost to do that, right? So you're pulling your money. What are you also doing in effect? You're getting your money out of the banks, out of the Fidelities of the world, out of the Vanguards, out of the Edward Joneses. You're moving it out of these financial institutions, which I think, just my opinion, allegedly, they're having a lot of problems. And you're moving it into a physical asset that's outside the banks, outside the markets, and outside the dollar, the fiat dollar. These are the three places, the banks, the markets, and the fiat dollar, that I think we're going to see the most problems. And the more those areas have problems, what should happen? The price of gold and silver should push up, right? And you can physically store that at a depository, or we could set up as an LLC, as a business, and you could go and store it on your own, right? So that would be effectively, we would ship the gold and silver to your doorstep. Takes a little bit more time to do it. There's a little bit more cost involved, not much. We try to help mitigate those costs for people. But yeah, it's a great time to be riding this stuff. Gold and silver is not a forever strategy. It's just really, I think, a bridge during this period of time when the country is not working properly, where the world is in turmoil. A lot of things have to be sorted out. This is a great place to kind of take cover and sort of see the playing field around you as it starts to improve on the far side of this.
So just kind of breaking news, Pete Hegseth met with some Iraqi leaders. Iraqi leaders have said that Pete informed them that the United States, or there may be military operations imminent in the Middle East. Obviously, if that starts to flare up again, especially toward the end of the year, that'll have some impact on the economy. You also have China. So let's talk about Iraq first and the Middle East. What kind of an impact do you think that would have?
Oh, it's going to be massive. I mean, whenever I look at these events that are playing out today, the banks need an excuse to tell everybody why they failed, why everything went to hell. And I think, especially war and Trump in office, and they're going to obviously pin the blame on Trump for any war breaking out, right? And then, of course, when that hits markets and that hits the economy, they're going to blame Trump for that too. They're going to try to pile it onto Trump. And unfortunately, there's not enough educated people in this country to see through the facade, to see through the fake nonsense that they're reporting. So there's going to be a lot of people that really think that, hey, this is we're coming up to a very important election in 2026. I mean, you have tremendous amounts of governor's races, Senate races, you name it. And from what I hear, what Trump's going to do prior to the 2026 elections is we're going to be going back to paper ballots. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of pushback from the deep state. And I think they have to start creating the chaos now, especially in the financial system, in order to thwart Trump's ability to implement free and fair elections for this upcoming election. Because, hey, if we had free and fair elections, we'd have Republicans sitting all across the country. None of these Democrats are in office legitimately. That's what people need to understand. This country is completely red. No one wants anything to do with these communist, weirdos, these freaks. But of course, with Smartmatic and these different machines that they've been able to implement, they've been able to sway elections any way they've wanted for decades.
That just tells me Trump is in their decision cycle. They were thinking 2028. They're ratcheting back now to 2026. So that's actually a good sign for me. Let's move to China. China obviously was yelling months ago, flexing its muscles, and all of a sudden, the dragon went out with a whimper. I mean, it was like, oh, we got a trade deal. And what's happening with China, and what does that mean for our export-import markets?
Well, China's economy is completely imploding. I mean, they were having protests. I don't even know what's still going on over there. See, it's tough, Pastor Matt, is you don't even really know the news, what's going on in China, because no one's there to report it. Who's reporting it?
Right.
CNN, NBC, who the heck knows? But China's got a lot of problems. And what Trump did was he isolated China during these tariff wars, these trade wars with China. He's basically pulled in all the partners of China, and he's pulled them into the United States with a better deal, with a better option for their country. So China's kind of isolated right now. Will they attack Taiwan? That remains to be seen. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but I think it's certainly, as far as my business and as far as my clients, I think it's going to play very well for the precious metals and anybody who's in them.
Right. China has been itself buying a lot of gold recently as well.
Yeah, they're trying to keep afloat. They understand, just like every other country understands, that we're going back to gold and silver as money. So every country out there is trying to are hoarding not just gold but silver too. That's why you're seeing a supply shortage on silver. You haven't seen it in gold yet as much, but silver's, I could see a scenario by the end of the year or early next year where silver's sitting at $100. And in order to get an ounce, you're going to have to pay $200, another $100 in premium, just so that you can incentivize somebody enough to actually sell their silver.
Right.
That's what I see playing.
Yeah, I think that's an important point you just made, that the premium price on the top of it is the incentive for people to actually part with their silver. People have not really figured that in. We have premiums now, up to $5 or whatever, but people are not seeing that this could exponentially increase over the next year.
Exactly. It's not going to be the price of silver that's prohibitive. It's going to be your ability to get it. That's a phrase I've used on podcasts for years now. Who's going to part ways with their silver when they see everything going to hell? I mean, sure, you might have somebody who wants to go, they found their dream house on the beachfront and they're willing to go part ways with their silver because they're trading it up for a house. Great idea. Hey, makes the person happy. That would be a reason I would say, yeah, sell your silver. You got your dream house. You want to take advantage of this. Absolutely. But the average person is just trying to protect their money, which is most people. They're not selling. They're not going to be selling. And the premiums to get the stuff are only going higher. So a lot of people, all they see is that spot price. But like you pointed out, for me to bring in a silver eagle, a 1 ounce silver eagle, I'm probably paying $5, $6, $7 over spot before I even make money. So, hey, we're at $49 silver. It's costing me $55, $56 just to put that on my shelf. I got to sell that for 57 or 58 just to turn a profit for myself. So you're already seeing this.
We are already seeing it. I agree 100%. And the last bit is, will Trump end the Fed in 2026?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's already in motion. That's why he put up the protective gates around the Treasury. The Fed, we know the Treasury took a lot of the powers from the Federal Reserve in 2020, right as COVID started, right before, right after, somewhere in there. I think what Trump's going to be doing is he's going to offload all the dog, assets onto the Fed. And, from what I hear, he's actually offloading a lot of the short positions of the big banks. Just, the big banks are evil, they're criminal, but I think he's protecting the people by getting those shorts out of the hands of these big banks, handing them off to the Fed. And there's an old expression, gold takes down the Fed. I believe it's being done with the short positions on gold and silver.
That's it right there. That is wisdom. Thank you, Matt Geiger, as always. A fascinating conversation. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Blessings and keep up the fight.
Thank you.
Matt Geiger, Verity Metals, converttogold.com. What can you do? Well, understand the signs of the times and what to do about it. Hedge. Put your money in real assets. That's the principle that's out there. But look, we're not here to tell you exactly what to do, but I want you to pray about it. Ask God what would be the best protection to get through these times. Because right now, God is giving us the opportunity to prepare for the times that are ahead. And that's part of what Patriot Radio does. We're a resource to help you see what's coming and prepare for it. We talked about the lockdown in the United States 5 years before it happened. We talked about what was going to happen in 2020 elections 2 years before it happened. In fact, 6 months, we were reading you the headlines that they had already prepared. So right now, you're hearing it ahead of time. There is going to be an economic transition. Are you going to be prepared for it? So what can you do? Well, always the good economic principle is have your wealth in tangible assets that you can stand in front of. We've talked about that on this show for 20 years. But the time is to act. Don't get caught waiting, procrastinating. I think there's a lot that's about to happen by the end of the year. There's some indicators that are out there that we talked about in the brief. The fact that key leaders in the United States of America are moving onto military bases. The fact that Trump is calling forth the National Guard, but specifically telling the National Guard to have quick reaction forces ready in each state. Something is about to happen. You need to be prepared for it. Because as Christians, preparation takes all the fear out of everything, and it allows you to be a blessing in a time of crisis. And that's what God calls us to do. This is Matt Shea. Thank you for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. He is making this generation the greatest one. The awakening is here, so keep up the fight.